Welcome back to the Sports Beat with Recher Holdridge. I am your host, Recher Holdridge. It's not every day that I get a guest on who has an appeal outside of Georgia. He is a wildly popular sports talk show host in the Tampa market. You can catch him on 95.3 ESPN radio in Tampa, Florida. He is a host of a show called J and Z. You can catch him on iHeartRadio from 12 to 3. Please welcome to the show, Jay Recher. I hope I got that last name right. Is it Recher?
You got it, pal. You're
All
spot
right.
on.
Jay, first of all, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, you got it, man. Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, just tell us a little bit about your broadcasting background. When did you get your start, and how long have you been doing broadcasting?
Well, I mean, I grew up in New York, Long Island, and I moved down to the Tampa Bay area when I was 20 with a couple of friends of mine. And ironically enough, 2 or 3 weeks later, they all moved back, left me down here by myself. I became a baseball coach, did that for about 8 years. And then I heard a commercial on, ironically enough, the station I work on right now, WDAE, and there was a thing for broadcasting school, and I went. And I just fell in love, and I just knew that that had to be what I was going to do for my life. I got this like fire burning in my stomach. I just knew that this was kind of the next step in this crazy journey called life. And started as an intern, and then they didn't have anything for me after my internship after a couple of years. This was in 2014. And after kind of being on the sideline for I'd say 2 or 3 weeks, they said, "Hey, we got a part-time job available on the weekend." Said, yeah, let's do it. So started working on the weekends part-time, doing some field reporting, going to Lightning games and Bucks games and Rays games and University of South Florida football games and Tampa Bay Rowdy soccer games, and that just kind of worked my way up. Executive producer, assistant program director, and then now hosting for almost 3 years now. So definitely worn a lot of different hats for the radio station. And just continuing to do what I love every day. Very grateful, blessed, and honored to do what I do day to day.
Well, Jay, you keep yourself busy. I've been seeing your posts on social media. We got Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp. I know there's a lot of buzz going on in Tampa because this is the first year in 3 years where there's no Tom Brady on the sidelines. I mean, what is the buzz about the Buccaneers? I read an article that on your radio station talking about this quarterback battle between Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. What's that vibe like down in Buccaneers camp?
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see kind of life before, during, and after Tom Brady, because having Jameis Winston here for 4 or 5 years, it was definitely exciting because he was the #1 overall pick out of Florida State. And then you bring in Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, and you just see the level of everybody, even the staff. It wasn't even just the players, the staff, the coaching, the front office, even like the trainers, the ball boys and girls, and everybody just knew like they were on their P's and Q's. Like the GOAT is here, and everybody has to make sure that they're performing at an optimal level to make sure that you're performing at a championship level every single day of practice. It's different now with Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. It's a competition, I think, in name only. A lot of people thought that once Baker signed with the Buccaneers that he was going to be the guy that was going to get the reps week 1. It hasn't been made official yet by head coach Todd Bowles, but we all think that you're going to go into the season with the veteran, and if eventually you turn the keys over to Kyle Trask at some point, he'll be ready to go. He's been much better in training camp than a lot of people thought. People thought that there was going to be a large gap, but offensive coordinator Dave Canales told us just a couple of weeks ago that absolutely, those were his words, absolutely the gap is tightened between Baker and Kyle Trask. So, of course, big SEC, obviously, with a lot of Gator fans in the Tampa Bay area, so they've been following Kyle Trask's career for a long time. A lot of Buccaneers fans, they know that it's going to be a little bit of a step back or a lot of step back, going from Tom Brady to either one of these guys. But with a new offensive coordinator, a more dedicated running attack, maybe a little bit more of a consistent offensive line, at least on the left side with Tristan. We're switching over there from Donovan Smith, who was definitely a public enemy #1 when it came to what was wrong with the offensive line the last couple of years. I still think there is optimism just because, there's a lot of changes, but also because the division isn't the strongest either.
Jay, being in the Tampa Bay area, the Tampa St. Pete area, there's a lot of passionate fan bases. But in your opinion, out of all the professional sports teams in the Tampa Bay market, which has the most passionate fans?
I like how you phrase that question. I think the biggest fan base is definitely the Buccaneers because football's still king down here. But I think passionate, I think I'm going to go with the Lightning. You would never think, 20, 25 years ago that hockey in Florida would be a thing. And now you look at it. I mean, the Florida Panthers made it to the final last year against the Vegas Golden Knights. And then before that, the Lightning won two of the previous three Stanley Cup finals. And to just see how hockey has really taken over the Tampa Bay area, it's incredible. They have the longest sellout streak in professional sports, I believe, right now, over 300. Just going to a game, when you watch the Lightning on the ice at Amalie Arena, it's not even so much about the team. It's not so much about the player. It's just the experience. And you have fans that aren't even really big into hockey, but they go to Amalie Arena and they walk out there, and they're certainly a Lightning fan. So biggest fan base, of course, again, football's king is going to be the Buccaneers. Passion, I'll go with the Bolts.
Jay, it seemed like 3 years ago, Tampa was the center of the sports universe. The Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. The Tampa Bay Rays went to the World Series but lost to the Dodgers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. Yes, it was 2020. It was the COVID year, and the fan base was limited, social distancing, but I know that it had to have been big for the city. I know we were in a pandemic, and fans couldn't enjoy it as much as they could. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers parade was on boats in the bay. I mean, what was the vibe like? It would have been different if there wasn't a pandemic. Would it be more just excitement for these teams that were on fire that year?
Yeah, I in a weird way, I think we probably in the Tampa Bay area had one of the best kind of experiences coming out of during and actually towards the tail end of the pandemic. And I know I don't want to make light of it. And I know there was a lot of people that went through a lot of tough and excruciating times, and it wasn't great for a lot of people. But we were very fortunate here in the Tampa Bay area. I was fortunate to be at those boat parades. I was on one of the floats for the two Lightning parades and then the Bucks parade, and just to be around those guys. And I was actually at Raymond James Stadium for the Super Bowl. I was at Amalie Arena for the Stanley Cup. I was at Raymond James Stadium for the WrestleMania. We had WrestleMania too. So there was a lot of things going on in the Tampa Bay area, and social distance. Everybody was outside. It was different, obviously, government-wise down here in Florida. But man, I don't look at it as like we missed out on anything. If anything, I think it helped give people just kind of that normalcy once again, because we were stuck inside and we weren't living our lives day to day like we were used to it. So I think sports, and we see this across so many different avenues over the years, is that sports kind of got things back to normal. And I think the fans enjoyed it, and it gave them a little bit of an escape from the realities that we were all facing around the world.
Jay, I do want to talk about South Florida football because South Florida, the Bulls, they play in Raymond James Stadium. They are in the American Conference. I remember back in 2007 where at one time they were ranked second.
Yeah.
And, they got a big game against Alabama at Raymond James Stadium this year. What is the buzz about South Florida football? I know that it's more of a Buccaneers town, but do you have your South Florida fans? I know that you were the play-by-play announcer for the South Florida Bulls. I mean, what is that atmosphere like?
So they certainly are one of the more like a younger football programs. So they still don't have the type of tradition as you would see from an Alabama, an Auburn, or Georgia, or University of Florida, any of the big schools from the SEC. It's been a tough putt. I mean, you're looking at one of the worst teams in college football last year. Not just worst teams in the conference, not just one of the worst teams like locally, like one of the worst teams in all of the United States. And hopefully with Alex Golish, the new head coach there, who was the OC last year in Tennessee. We saw how good Tennessee was last year with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and that dynamic Volunteers offense. Bringing him over to USF, I mean, it's excited some people, but listen, we had Jeff Scott here a couple of years ago too, and he was the right-hand man for Dabo Swinney in Clemson. So there's still people that are wondering, like, is this kind of just the same old thing, bringing over the hot young coordinator, and he's going to come here and not really make a big difference. So they really jumped into the transfer portal. They're bringing over a ton of new players on both sides of the football. We're still kind of waiting to see if Byron Brown's going to be the quarterback or Gary Bohannon, a guy that came from Baylor last year. So I don't think anybody is under the illusion that the USF Bulls have much of a chance going against the Alabama Crimson Tide, but it will be interesting to see those two teams match up at Raymond James Stadium. And that is the big draw for a lot of these college teams that do come play USF, not because necessarily right now they're going to face the stiffest competition, but it means something to these college athletes to be able to play in an NFL stadium. So we'll see. You never know. That's why you got to. That's the great thing about sports, though, Richard. You got to go out there and play the game, and even if it's closer than we thought, maybe that's something that Alex Golish and his crew can kind of use to catapult USF into an improved season.
Jay, I want to talk about South Florida men's basketball because you've got a great coach coming to Tampa, the former Kennesaw State head basketball coach, Amir Abdul-Rahim, who led the Kennesaw Owls to an NCAA tournament berth, almost beat Xavier. They had a 13-point lead in that first-round tournament. He was one of the hottest coaches, and I'm a big Kennesaw State fan. Hate to see him leave, but you're getting a great coach down in South Florida coaching the men's basketball team in the American Conference, and I can't wait to this basketball season. I'm interested to see what he does.
Yeah, I am too. And we were very fortunate. I think it was the day after he was hired by USF. We had him on our program, and just an awesome dude. And we've seen what he's done in the past, taking programs that maybe weren't too hot and really were on the downslope and really turned things around and made a big impact. And we're hoping that he can do the same thing with USF. Brian Gregory battling for the men's basketball team the last couple of years, but just could not get that team over the hump. There's so much talent, whether it's in the Tampa Bay area or in the Sunshine State, and he wasn't able to really find the success that USF needs. I mean, those are the two moneymakers, man. When you look at football and men's basketball, like if you really want to make a change with your athletic department, those teams year in, year out have to be competitive. And in direct comparison, USF perennially has one of the best women's basketball team. They're a top 25, top 30 team every single year. Coach Jose Fernandez does such a fantastic job. So you could do it on the women's side, got to be able to do it on the men's side. If football and men's basketball turn that corner with Coach Golos and Coach Abdul-Rahim, yeah, athletics could be looking a lot different, and maybe we can add those two teams to Tampa Bay here in the Tampa Bay area.
Let's talk about the other sports in Tampa that don't get a whole lot of recognition. I know you mentioned about the Tampa Bay Rowdies. You also have the Tampa Bay Strikers in the NISL. But what's the basketball scene like? I mean, are the basketball fans in Tampa just Orlando Magic fans, or is there like a G League team? Or, I'm just curious to see, like, what are the basketball fans doing in Tampa?
It's funny that you asked that because me growing up in New York, born and raised a big-time New York Knicks fan. They're that one team, like, if they win a championship, I'm definitely going to shed a tear. Like, that's just a team that I share with my dad and my brother and my entire family. But we did have basketball down here during the pandemic. The Toronto Raptors actually came down and played at Amalie Arena because of the heavy restrictions north of the border. So that really was, I think, a little bit of a trial run of, like, how interested are people going to be in the NBA? And it was not well attended. It just did not really catch on. And there is a little, and people will look on the outside looking in going, man, Tampa and Orlando, there's got to be some kind of crossover. It doesn't seem that they're that far from each other, but there are, I would say, Rays fans and Buccaneers fans and maybe to an extent Lightning fans out there in Orlando, but there's not as many Tampa fans, or there's not many Orlando fans that live here. I don't know many people that are really Magic fans. There really is a disconnect there. So basketball, even though it's one of my favorite sports and I love to watch it, it's not as popular here in the 813.
Jay, the Tampa Bay Rays, I know they're battling with the Baltimore Orioles for the top spot in the American League East. It's going to look like the Rays are going to make the playoffs whether or not they win the division, but right now they're playing my San Francisco Giants at Tropicana Field, and you don't get that matchup very often, but what is the attendance like at Tropicana Field? I know that when the Braves play, that place is packed, but is the fan base growing for the Tampa Bay Rays because they are winning?
Yeah, I think it's we've seen routinely over the last couple of years, you've seen attendance as low as like the 6, 7, 8,000, but pretty much this year it's done. We've seen like 11,000 be kind of like the low end. So we've seen about 3,000 more fans on average than we've seen in years past, with some in the high teens, some in the 20s. This is a very transient type of town. There's a lot of people that come from all over the country to live in the Tampa Bay area. So you'll get some of the bigger market teams. Like anytime a Chicago team is here, it's packed. Yankees packed, Red Sox packed. And then the interleague matchups like Philly, there was a ton of Phillies fans, a ton of Braves fans. And I think there's a couple of things that coincide with that. Like a lot of their games are at 6:40 this year. So fans don't have to worry so much about being there as late. And if the majority of the fan base comes from Tampa, you don't have to worry about driving over the bridge to St. Pete all the time. And also the new rules in baseball, speeding the game up. So now you got fans being over with the game before 9 p.m. on a weekday. So it makes it a lot more palatable for people to be able to go there. Of course, the team won, I think, the first 13 games of the year. So that helps as well. One of the more exciting teams. So I always say with the Rays, it's not always the quality of the issues why the attendance is down. I think it's the quantity of issues. There's always a little thing. And then it's the Tampa Bay area. A lot of people travel and they go away during the summer months. There's a lot more things to do, when you live here. So it's the quantity of issues, not so much the quality. But it's been a lot better this year than it has been in the years past.
Jay, you get to do sports talk radio 5 days a week for 3 hours. I wish I had your job. That is amazing. But what goes in? It seems like it's a team effort. You have a co-host, you have producers. Typically, what goes into a general day for you having to get ready to talk sports for 3 hours on an ESPN radio affiliate, a widely popular station at a great time slot right there from noon to 3?
Yeah, we're very blessed because we are an iHeartMedia radio station with the ESPN radio affiliate. We have Premier as well. So we have great relationships with everybody interspersed, and we have such great partners that we're able to bring on different guests and be able to broadcast different types of games, whether it's All-Star games, World Series, things like that. But to me, it's a 24/7 job. It really is. It's not something that we just focus on the hour before we go on air. That's how sports is. Breaking news can happen at any time. We're going through the Wander Franco situation right now with the Rays, and that's something that we're constantly perusing social media and keeping our eye out for new information so we can disseminate that info to our fans, our listeners here in the Tampa Bay area. I get to work around 8:15, 8:20 every day. I want to get there at least 3 hours before the show so we have plenty of time to be able to go through any of the topics. We planned it out segment by segment, but also with the caveat knowing that if breaking news happens, that takes precedent over anything. That's the great thing about live radio. You can plan it, but then the world says, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you have a plan. This is more important. This is what people want to know about. So it's really just about listening to your audience, what you're servicing them. You want to talk about things that are entertaining and informative to them. But it's a joy. It's a blessing, man. I've worked a lot of jobs over the years. Truly blessed and truly grateful for the job that I have. But every single day, I work hard to make sure that today's show is better than yesterday. I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. So that's kind of my mindset, is making sure we're looking at every single different angle of these big sports stories and, putting everything we have into giving entertaining content, but also researching it and making people feel like they're part of the show. People want to feel like you're talking with them, not at them.
And Jay, of course, I have the liberty of listening to your show, and you're very talented, very passionate at what you do, and just keep up the good work. And, before I let you get out of here, just tell all my listeners where they can listen to your show and if they could follow you on social media.
Yeah, follow me on social media at Recher, JAYRECHER, 9 letters. I was able to get it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. So you can follow me on there, Snapchat, TikTok. Maybe not Snapchat. I'm not really on that one, TikTok. But TikTok, Threads, that's the new one. So yeah, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But yeah, every day, noon to 3 Eastern Standard Time. You can download that free iHeartRadio app, which is great. So even if, and you're in the Tampa Bay area or you're not, you could download it. We podcast the entire show. We podcast all of our big interviews. I have my own podcast that is going to be coming out soon. So yeah, that's the great thing about the iHeartRadio app. You can listen pretty much anywhere in the world. And Yeah, you could talk sports. So it's a lot of fun. And my co-host Zach Blobner and I have a blast every day from noon to 3.
All right, Jay, appreciated you taking time out of your busy schedule and coming on my show. It was fun. Would love to have you back on. And it's been great just getting to know about Tampa sports. And really, you're having a lot of fun down there, and your teams are great. And best of luck to all the Tampa teams this year.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the time. And yeah, anytime. Just let me know, buddy. Would love to join you again.
All right. That was Jay Recher. He is a host of a sports show, J and Z. You can listen to him on 95.3 ESPN radio down in Tampa from 12 to 3 and also on the iHeartRadio app. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Sports Beat with Recher Holdridge. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. You don't want to go anywhere. Bye.